Welcome everybody. I'm sorry we can't see you. It's always much easier to be able to see your audience, but we are imagining you out there. And there are 3 of us presenting today. It's myself and 2 of the MA students, because we would like to give you a very short but strong sort of feeling for the course by looking at practice as well as describing the structure of the course and giving a sense of the experience of it and how we teach it, and with lots of space for questions at the end. So we are with, I'm afraid this is a bit confusing because I've shared my webinar link with the students, so that it looks like we're all called Imogen Stidworthy. I'm Imogen Stidworthy and I'm the programme leader. Mark Wright, who would have been with us today, teaches with me. We're our main teaching input, along with Chris Evans, who is based in Brussels, who, like the 3 of us, he's an artist too. And with me in this webinar are Mary Hennessy, who's, thanks for Mary waving now, and Abby Bradshaw. So we're going to start actually by plunging straight into practice and student perspective with a short presentation from Abby. And I will go on mute. Abby, if you'd like to screen share, you should be able to do that now. Let me know if you have any difficulties. I'll just, well, I hope that's going to work actually. Because, how do I get rid of that? Are you? That may be difficult. How do I get rid of that? So I'm just trying to escape from my own, there we go. I'm trying to escape from my own screen share, there we go. Great, over to you, Abby.
Is this sharing now?
Yep, fantastic. Yep.
So, I'm a performance artist living and born in Liverpool. My practice focuses on body and space relationships in the everyday, exploring this through choreographical object and movement. So just some images of some fairly recent work. This was a residency that we done at Make Liverpool. We were there for 3 weeks last November as part of the MA course. I am influenced and motivated by the way we move and operate within the everyday as bodies. There's just some more examples of my work. This was also a collaboration with an artist on the MA course. My most recent project that I'm part of with Liverpool Biennial is a collaboration with artist Jorge Mena Barrento, and we have been part of making a magazine called Enzyme, which I'm going to show you on my screen actually now, so I'll stop the share. This is Enzyme, so this is a collaboration with me, Jorge, and some other people on the course. The project began when Jorge, or George actually, came and done a talk at John Moore's, and then he was invited by John Moore's as a partnership to engage with students and get some collaborators to be a part of his project. And then from then, now we've been working together for a year and a half actually, and the project's come to an end now. My contribution to the project is this small biome, actually, that is part of a collection of things, but which is Blind Scouts, which is an interactive performance booklet to follow to perform an everyday act, such as cooking a dish local to the city. And yeah, is that my 5 minutes up?
Yeah, I think thanks, Abby, that's great. And that just, so Abby, your project, first of all, you were showing some images from Make, and so this touches on the format of the course that we run and the different elements of the program. So there are various modules. I'm just going to screen share myself. So you get a quick overview. The various modules which have different time frames between one semester and a whole year long. And within those modules, we are continuing sort of practice together at different pace. So we have short-term projects, including residencies outside John Moore's building, out in the city, and Make, where Abby made those first works that you saw with kind of sculptural objects in which you were interacting with your body and exploring gestures and interrelation between your body, the object, and the space, Abby. That was all at Make, which is a big warehouse in the North Dock that we have a partnership with. And every year we begin with a 1-month residency there, which is an exciting way to start because you have 24-hour access. It's a big, very accommodating space for any scale of work. And they also have basic making facilities there. And they have resident artists and so-called creatives who have studios there, and the people who run the whole initiative. One of them was a fine artist actually at Leeds. And so there is a kind of an element of mentoring, and there's a lot of dialogue that goes on between the students and the residents. And above all, there's an amazing freedom to work in a really big space, and at the same time to be developing an orientation in the city, to be bonding as a group, and to be sort of developing your professional network also with different agents in the city as artists. So that residency sport is this sort of springboard for actually a lot of work, some of which continues very long term, and projects which began in that first term in October of a 1 or 2 year MA have sometimes continued all the way through to developed versions of those initial experiments, which are still going on. So Kos, for example, is one of the artists that worked with Abby on the collaboration with George Menabarito. And his first work at Make was a collaboration with another artist on the course. And this is now developed into very powerful sort of multimedia live performance. And Kos is also one of the 3 artists who are collaborating with George. And that collaboration is an example of how our partnerships with different institutions in the city can how they can generate interesting projects. So we have formal partnerships with Liverpool Biennial, FACT and Tate, and those partnerships bring up different kinds of opportunities, including simple possibilities like using the very beautiful education room at the Tate for our seminars, or having curatorial tours of the shows there, or in this case with the magazine, having an artist from the Biennial finding 3 collaborators among the MA, and that developed into a really interesting and important dialogue through which each of the artists on the MA who were involved has opened out new directions in their research, actually, and so it's really fed into practice. So to briefly touch on this course structure, which you can find out more information about on the website, but you can also come back and ask questions about these nuts and bolts practicalities after the whether you're full-time or part-time, we're all going through modules which broadly fall into 2 categories. One, which is called this is a strange sound, I hope you're not being disturbed by that sound. One is broadly more discursive, and also it's being taught on Mondays. And these are modules that initially are being taught with all the different MAs in the School of Art and Design. There's lots of opportunity for cross-disciplinary, influence and exchange and collaborations. And those modules are basically around methods for research, developing your writing practice, which is closely tied to your studio practice, your making practice, which is basically a shorter and then a longer text, which is a reflection on your own work. And then the transdisciplinary practice project, which is the collaborative, which is an invitation for you as an individual to collaborate with one or a collective or a group of partners or an organization. And so those are the Monday modules. And then on Tuesdays, we call it studio practice within a very expanded notion of what studio might mean. So it may be that you're working in a very digital way on laptops the whole time, or that you're physically making sculptures or anything in between. But this is what we're focusing on Tuesdays. And within those sessions, which are from 1 till 4 or 5 in the afternoon, we come together as a group every week. And basically, we are really focusing on your practice directly through one-to-one tutorials, or you presenting work, making exhibitions, doing group crits, and by reflection, through looking at other artist practices, contemporary art contexts, and contexts that we feel are relevant and interesting in broader cultural context or within other fields. And it's a small group, usually, maximum 15, between 7 and 15 students. So we can be very responsive to individual practices of each of you on the course. And how you're working and what you're interested in is all the time feeding into the subjects that we kind of explore together through readings, seminars, visiting lecturers. This is one of our visiting lecturers from recent, Haroon Mirza, who's very well known for his sound sculptures. For example, Yael Davids, last year with us, she did a Feldenkrais session live on Zoom, which was wonderful because we were all getting very starved of any sort of bodily relation to these teaching moments. We do readings together. This is an example, a text from Erin Manning, who's a philosopher and choreographer. And we were working the notion of choreographic objects, which is how do objects change the way we use our bodies. I brought this in response to Abby and Koss's work, but also the work of a couple of graduates, all of whom are working with objects in very interesting ways in relation to the body. So this concept, which I was responding to students' practice, but then we discussed it, and we just discussed this text together in a reading seminar, and then each of the students went off and actually really worked with that idea and became quite important to their practices in different ways. So modules.
I'm Imogen Stidworthy, Programme
Oh,
Leader for
sorry.
MA Fine Art.
Stop. Back.
We set up the condition.
Sorry, that's a pre-recorded presentation. So I'm just briefly touching on the modules and the different formats by which we come together and critically reflect on your work. One thing I haven't mentioned enough of is exhibition making, which is really important to the course. And we see it not as a moment of display, but as a form, as a medium, if you like, through which in more compressed and concentrated circumstances with a deadline, working together often in a new space outside the building, but it could also be a space in the building. We use these moments of intense activity to develop work in ways that don't ever quite happen in the more regular sort of rhythm of individual practice. And so we usually have, normally in non-COVID times, at least 3 to 4 exhibitions a year in different spaces around the city, which is brilliant for professional practice. You gain a lot of confidence and competence and develop your professional network. In COVID times, we're obviously doing more online, but we in Fine Art actually on the MA have been lucky through the partnerships with different venues in the city. We still are managing to work in physical space, and we will be having a degree show, a physical degree show this year as well. Before I go on any further, giving you broad outlines of the course, I think we should dip back into some practice and invite Mary to give a presentation about some of her work, which will show you through what she's been doing, how some of these modules kind of are fleshed out in practice by students. So I'm going to stop my share and, oh, was I unmuted? No. Right, over to you, Mary.
Okay, can everybody see that?
I'm on it.
I think there's a little bit of feedback there.
Can you hear me now? Shall I move a bit? I'll just move slightly. Okay.
You're presenting.
There's a little bit of
Sorting
feedback
it.
because you're in the same location.
Yeah, we are. Same name, same location. We're quadruplets now, you can see. Can you see and hear that okay now?
Yeah, that's better now. Thank you.
How funny. Okay. What I'd like to do is just tell you the story of, put this from the beginning, of where I'm up to now and how I got there. And I'm part-time MA, a very different route from a lot of people in that my first degree wasn't in art at all. I've had a career in education, first of all, and I've come into this a bit later, which is very exciting for me. And my story started at the same residency that Abby mentioned at Make, and my first work was inspired by this building here, which has come to become a really important part of my life for the last year. It's the Tobacco Warehouse on Stanley Dock. I was looking at aspects of shelter, the bricks of the Tobacco Warehouse. I found fascinating, the number of them, and how little units can build up into great big buildings that become very important, and there are 27 million of them there. I wanted to find a way to extract the information from those bricks. So I did that through sound. I won't play you that now. We'll move on. Oh, it is playing. It's a little bit of the work at Make, and this is it in movement. It was the participatory piece for the audience. This is the space at Make. So the audience were making the piece as we went along. It's quite loud and noisy, isn't it? Oops, move on. From that, I then went we had to go into second lockdown then in November. So we were working more obviously on Zoom, and I decided to try and extract other aspects, other characteristics of the bricks. So I went into working on olfactory art and trying to extract the essence of bricks and the smell of them. So that was another challenge as to how we worked together, but we managed to overcome that in many ways. And I found that very interesting. There's a whole world of olfactory art that I didn't know existed. It's one of the things that we found in tutorials and seminars is the number of links that are made through the tutors who are very knowledgeable about artists and the other group members to new people and works that you'd never have dreamt even existed. I've found that very enlightening. So I made perfume as such. And then from that, the link to the transdisciplinarity unit was very important for me in that it was we began to put together an idea for an exhibition at the Tobacco Warehouse, which is the building here. Where's my cursor gone? In this building. We got a positive response from that. We wanted to try and set up some sort of an exhibition, which became a residency, in order to try to preserve the character of the area and pay something back into the creative community to sort of create some sort of artistic, creative history and tradition in that region. So we now have, and it's actually starting tomorrow, and Abby's part of it. Tomorrow is the first day of a 6-week residency in the Tobacco Warehouse, which will be followed by an exhibition. And that all came from the transdisciplinary unit. And it was also seeded by a unit in the studio practice, little pop-up task that we did. So going forward, I'm working on that project, kind of making that happen. I'm so excited that it's actually going to happen starting tomorrow. And the work that's leading into for me is around, I'm calling it obfuscation, about how layers of meaning, or veils of obfuscation are sometimes drawn across meaning and information, cover-ups, distortion, transparency, where you only see glimpses of truth. And the way that I'm trying to realise that at the moment is through I'm working in print work and the materiality of paper. This image on the left is one of our little pop-up shows that we did in the empty LJMU atrium. And at the moment, what I'm trying to do is find ways, let's see if I can make one of these work for you, of these sorts of things where you get these moire patterns that I'm trying to find ways to make really big images of these that people can move through and about in order to make people move and react to things through obfuscation, which for me is a little bit about how perhaps the tobacco industries have obfuscated the truth and the information about what tobacco really does, while they've continued to sort of what would the word be, sort of optimize the financial benefits from that. And that's my work at the moment. Thank you. I'll stop sharing.
Mary, thank you. That's I actually haven't seen that recent work of yours. That looks really, really interesting, and what an interesting relationship between the tobacco industry in relation to that context, that site in which you're working, and the way that you've, I think, you make a relationship with those images in terms of obfuscation and perhaps that notions of truth and untruth that we now connect with the tobacco industry in the light of current health awareness. But I was just going to, having managed to take the sound off these images while we talk now, I think because of the time, I see that Mark has been able to join us, my colleague, in the kind of main weekly teaching kind of rhythm. I don't know if you'd like to quickly say hello, Mark, before we open to questions. And I'm just flipping through some of the images that I put together, giving you insight into some works made over the last couple of years, not this year's. Can you, oh, sorry, of course you can't. Up. Screen share. Would you like to make a quick intro, Mark? Or if that's too complicated, you could just come in on the questions.
I think Mark might be having some issues with sound.
Okay.
Imogen, would it be worth it?
Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you now. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, sorry, it's my microphone.
We're coming to the end of our time, Mark, but it'd be great because just if you could, I don't know, just say a couple of words about. Yeah,
just so my background is I came from computer science into fine art. Did a lot of work with FACT in Liverpool, and what I'm interested in is the relationship between culture and technology through the philosophy of embodiment. So embodiment is the idea that our perception is very much tied into our bodies and other tools like sticks and stones and paintbrushes and computers and language that we use to mediate our relationship with each other. So that's what I'm interested in. So thank you.
And maybe I should mention a couple of words. We're all practicing artists teaching on the MA, and with very different kinds of practice. Chris Evans makes very varied in terms of media, very often related to narratives, fictional, loosely related to real histories and processes, and very conceptually driven. My own work is also broad in terms of medium, but particularly driven by engagement with questions around voice and language, and taking form of films, multi-part installations, but with a particular emphasis on sound and voice. So that's where we're coming from.